When a person dies, the ear is the last sensory organ to shut down. In other words, it's the organ that serves us the most until the end. How effective then do you think listening is? If I told you that listening is the most effective way to win the hearts of people, would you believe me? I want to talk to you today about the importance of listening, something we may need to consider a lot more than we do now. I have had many people go out of their way and cooperate with me through the art of listening. I'm sure you can change your life through the listening. I am both happy and honored to be able to share this secret with you. I have met a master listener before. He has changed and is still changing lives by simply listening. From the members of Congress to the business leaders, university chancellors, politicians, and religious leaders, they all come and call him every now and then to ask how he is doing and support him. But he doesn't own a business or have a lot of money, and yet he's still one of the few people who can bring people from different denominations and political stands together without any conflict ensuing, which is impossible in my country. One day I met and asked him how he was able to do that. And he said that most effective way to win the hearts of people is to listen. So I followed the answer with the question like how? So he told me to listen if the other person was my king. Over the next few months, I learned about the strategic listening from this man and applied this teaching to the people I met, and this made a massive difference in my life. Let me tell you about just one of the many cases I have applied this listening to. A high school student in my community tried to commit suicide. He jumped off the school building, but fortunately, the building was not very high, so his life was spared. But his ankle was seriously broken, and he was thrown into a terrible state of despair, too much that he refused to come out of his room for about a year. His parents cried every day, and they tried to comfort him by giving him delicious food and teaching him how to live life again. But sometimes they would get tired of doing that and angry and ended up scolding him. But no matter what they did, they couldn't get him out of his room. When I went to visit the student, as requested by, he wasn't in a good state. Long, unkempt hair, helpless eyes, and I was unable to see a human eyes. He just stared at the ground and said nothing. Looking at him, I wondered what to say. But firstly, I asked him his name, age, and hobbies. But at that time, all he wanted to do was obviously avoid talking to me. And later at the end, he told me that he liked to play games. So I said, "Oh, is that so? I like to play games too. Would you like to play with me sometimes?" I asked, and he didn't answer. That was our first conversation. After that, I often visited and tried to talk to him, but he would only give short answers to what I asked him. He wouldn't want to share his story with me, but we continued to meet, and for the first few times, there was no dialogue occurred. By the 10th meeting, I had doubts about how effective this method was. But on the 11th time we met, he suddenly wanted to follow me out. So we went out together. We walked for a while without talking to each other. And suddenly, he asked me a very first question, saying that who is your favorite female singer? I was surprised and happy, so I told him about my favorite female singer. And he said he understood. And on the next couple of meetings, he started asking me questions. And on the 16th time we met, he asked me if we could come to my place. And I said, yes, of course. And on the same day, at my place, he asked me if he could call me an elder brother. In my culture, when men become very close, the younger calls the elder 형. Everyone, would you like to try it? Say 형. 형님. Thank you for calling me 형. When he asked me if he could call me an elder brother, I was thrilled and I jumped for joy. And from then on, he changed from calling me sir to an elder brother. And after that, we met almost every day. And on the 18th time we met, he asked me about what I do and my schedule. So I told him that I wake up at 4 a.m. to start my day. And following morning, he was sitting next to me at 4 a.m. When I went out, he went with me. When I ate, he ate with me. And when I worked out, he worked out with me. And when I cleaned, he cleaned with me. He did literally everything that I did, which became a big issue in his family, school, and community. We met total of 56 times. In other words, I listened to him for 56 times. But within a year, he came out of his room, socializing, going to a vocational school, and later getting a job. The day I came to Africa, he hugged me tight and cried a lot. I have a lot more stories like this one. We tend to win people over by giving great speeches, teaching, imparting knowledge, and giving material things and so on. But this method I'm sharing today is realistic, accessible, and the most strategic of all. That is strategic listening. Today, I'm going to share the 5 ways to practice strategic listening. The first rule is to listen to the others without interrupting them. It's important to think of that person as your king. And to keep listening for 2, 3, or even 6 hours until they stop talking. And it's about listening for 2 or 3 hours up to 100 times. Eye contact, nodding, and the other gestures of trust that you are listening are essential. Number 2, never try to change or teach people. If you want to win the hearts of people, you should never try to teach or change them, because people don't like it when someone tries to teach or change them. It's just like how telling a king that his opinion is wrong is life-threatening. Think of it as the end of your relationship with that person. You know, king's word is absolute and it's a command. 3, wait for the king's permission. No one likes to be interrupted, even more so if it's the king, right? Scientifically speaking, people take an average of 7 seconds to say their next word. When you talk to people repeatedly, you'll notice that some people talk every 3 seconds and the others every 10 seconds. And you'll get a feel for their conversation cycle after just a few minutes of talking to them. Think of it as you can only speak when the king permits you to. Wait for the permission and then speak. 4, be the king's spokesperson. Listen to the people, summarize what they say, and speak on their behalf. They will give you a lot of trust when they feel that you are their spokesperson. 5, when you listen for 100 times and still don't get it. There will be times when you still cannot understand or win the heart of people even after patiently listening to them for 100 times. It means that you have not created a word of mind within yourself to deal with that person. And that's when a new word of mind will begin to be formed in you. Additionally, spend a day or two without talking but listening only. Life becomes so much more colorful, and it's like you can see more colors clearly. And as if your hearing has improved, you can hear things you used to miss. And the world seems to be filled with new sensations. I realized how much I'd been missing when I started listening. Listening is always challenging. Even after learning these things, there were times when I couldn't resist the urge and tried to teach and change people. But the funny thing is, the more depressed they are, the more mentally unwell they are, the less they could actually remember what I was telling them, even if I had just told it to them. But when I listened to them, kept listening, eventually they would open up their room to me. When I want to do a big project and look for partners to work with, I would explain my vision and goals, but most of all, I listen to them. I talk. Yes, I do talk, but there are times in life when I want to or have to win the hearts of people. But when I want to or have to win the heart of people, I would shut my mouth. I would keep my mouth shut and listen. And it's never failed me so far. When you listen to someone as if they are your king, the more you listen, the more you become a king in their mind. At first, they won't remember your name and where you're from. And they won't even be interested in what you do. But if you continuously listen to them as if they are your king, eventually you will become a king in their minds. And they become a kind of people who ironically cannot live without you. The master listener I mentioned earlier spends at least 4 or 5 years trying to win the hearts of people through the art of listening. He would invite people to his house and treat them and keeps listening to them. He only tells his stories when they ask him to. But he is a doctor, professor, a principal of a high school, and a very influential leader. But he doesn't talk about any of that. He would only listen to people one by one and treating them like they are his king. And by doing that, he ends up with a lot of leaders, presidents, and a lot of other important people following and supporting him. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that make the 4 or 5 years of listening worth it? It does, right? Are there any people in your workplace or in your family that you need to or you want to communicate with but haven't been able to talk to for a while? Or have you ever been in a relationship where you had to let it go because you couldn't hold them anymore? It's never easy to listen for 100 times. But try it with someone you need to or have to communicate with, or someone you want to understand, or someone you need to save, or someone who needs you. You will never fail. Ladies and gentlemen, today, who do you want to win through the listening? Thank you for winning my heart today.